The LMS that I chose for my blended learning project is Schoology. And there's a few reasons that I chose Schoology. The first would be that it looks like social media, and my middle school students are all about social media right now. So this one seemed to be very engaging for my middle school students. Another reason that I liked it is that there is an app for it, and even if my students don't necessarily have a computer at home, pretty much all of them at least have a phone that has data connection 24/7. So this one seemed like a good option for me. I also liked that it had the capability to add students or to add parents for them to have access as well. So that was a nice feature also. The unit that I decided to flip is from my 7th grade math curriculum, and it happened to be Unit 6, and it's all about proportionality. And so the organization of this is that when students come, they'll see this, and so they can either open up Unit 6, or they can go to problem solving, or they can go to the folder for math jokes. So in the future, if I continue to use the flip model with success, I would add more units to this page, obviously, but this is just the starting ground for me. So Unit 6 students would open this up and they would see these options here. The first option is to post a question, so they can post a question and receive feedback from myself or from one of their peers, which is a nice feature. And then these folders are for their lesson. So each lesson contains a flipped video for math, and this is the first time that I have created flipped videos for math. So I used an app called Show Me, and so that worked really well. It just took me a little bit to get used to. So my first video is not as great as my last one, but um, so each one right now just has a homework assignment. They have the video lecture right there so that students can click on it and see the video. Right now I do not have the lecture notes in the form of a Google Doc, but if my school were to go to one-to-one, which we are not right now, but if they were, I would put the notes in here so that students would not be doing notes on paper pencil, but rather online through Google Docs. Another option for me would be to put these into Edpuzzle and create prompting questions, so that would be more of the assessment I would use as opposed to looking at their notes. But for right now, they just have the video lecture, and then they receive a hard copy of the note sheet in class. But that is not in digital form currently, but something in the future that I could convert over to a Google Doc. So the other lessons all have a video lecture. Some of them have other things added to them as well. So lesson 2 has a quiz in it. So in lesson 2, the students would come in and complete this quiz for lessons 1 and 2. And this is a nice feature of this LMS. You can actually create your quizzes in here and then grade them through Schoology. This one's just a couple questions, just a check for understanding. And then some of the units or lessons have additional resources in them. So for lesson 5, since this is the last lesson in the unit, I did put some additional resources to make sure that they were understanding before they take their test. So as usual, they would come and they would watch their video lecture and they would take notes. Each of them always starts with a learning target and then goes through examples. But for this lesson, they have a couple extra things. Right now I have just an additional Khan Academy video if they're not quite understanding. That might help them, and in the future I do plan to add more to this so students have lots of support. I did choose to include a discussion question. I know a lot of times in math we don't do a lot of writing or focus on literacy, but for those students who might despise math, and I know we all have a few, um, this is actually a really great option for them because they can go in and they can post in writing as opposed to having to computate or problem solve. So this is for my students who might be more gifted in the literacy area. I might enjoy that. And this is just a question about proportionality and how um, all the different types of proportions relate to each other. And then finally, I have a quiz, a check for understanding. This one's only one question. But the point is just for me to see if they're understanding. So that's it for the unit. I do have an additional file down here, and this is more for students or for parents because, like I said, you do have the option with Schoology to allow parents to have access to their students' work. So this is just a list of the Common Core standards and how all of the content is aligned to the Common Core, so they can rest assured that their student is learning what they do need to know for the grade level. Finally, let's go back to the home page for 7th grade math. I have a folder for problem solving. Because the curriculum that I have does not include a lot of problem solving, I wanted to include a folder for this. And the first one is a link to my wiki, which we created in Productivity and Practice with Professor Ramirez. And so this is just another resource for them to use, and the part that they use on a weekly basis, and we do use this in class now, would be the problem of the week. And so we just finished a unit on percents, and so their problem of the week was all about percents. And so this is just a good resource for students to have in LMS because they can come in here and look for strategies on how to solve different problems. And so there's just a couple video links and then links to other resources online for different strategies for problem solving. And then I also have a file in here for a Google Doc. This is just a sample of what the students are expected to do for the problem of the week. So they're always expected to have a problem, they're expected to have their work written down, and they're expected to explain what they did and why they did it in words. So that's it for problem solving. And then the final one might seem a little strange, not typical, but I actually got this idea from another teacher. A lot of my students love to laugh. I love to laugh. And so I thought this might be a nice way to bring a little bit of light to the situation, because I know a lot of my students might struggle with math anxiety and they don't like math very much. And so this is just an easy, quick way for students to be engaged. And so there's a couple links here to different math jokes, and the final part here is a discussion board where students can post their best math joke or a math joke that they found online. And so that's my unit model for blended learning. And I actually have started using this in my classroom, and the students have only gone through one lesson. There has been a little bit of transition as far as making sure the students know how to watch the video and how to prepare themselves to work in class the following day after they watch the video lecture. But so far, the feedback from my students has been really positive, and they just love that they can come into class and not have to worry that they did not understand everything from the night before, the homework that they did the night before. And so right now, I have a feeling that I will come back in here and I will add more things, add more units, and hopefully be able to continue to implement this idea of blended learning in my classroom.